All right, guys, it's time for the Next Level Guy Show, a men's interview, interest, and improvement-focused podcast featuring interviews with the greats from all industries to help you better your life. Each week, a new episode features an interview with one of the greats, covering all aspects of their story, from life hacks to tips and protocols that have allowed them to live life on the next level. We then highlight concrete action steps that you can use to improve your life. And now, your host, Ian Dawson McKay.
And today's guest is Chris Powell. Chris is widely known as the transformation specialist and host of ABC's documentary-style series, Extreme Weight Loss. With an unyielding dedication to helping others, Chris travelled the country using his innovative techniques, education and expertise to guide extremely overweight individuals as they shed hundreds of pounds over the course of a year. Beyond the show, Chris became a leading authority on achieving optimal health and lifelong transformation. Chris and Heidi Powell launched the digital platform Transform with Chris and Heidi. It has the goal of transforming 1 million lives and provides users with the motivation, exercises, nutrition and built-in community for a successful transformation. In addition to the app, the Transform brand has introduced its own supplement line, a line of everyday meal replacement shakes, energy formulas and vitamins, and the Perform line of workout and performance products. It also introduced a one-on-to-one coaching program where app users are paired with a certified personal coach who has a history of successful transformation and works side by side with Chris and Heidi. Chris has been awarded the prestigious Jack Lian Award, written several books that have soared to the top of the New York Times bestseller list. He holds a degree in exercise science and the training accreditation, the Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist. He appears regularly on nationally syndicated television shows and has been featured on the cover of and has written for many top-name publications. And in this interview, we discuss destroying limiting beliefs to create true personal fitness and health transformations, learning to love and believe in ourselves through fitness and healthy eating, how to establish core values and habit forming, training, nutrition, diet and supplement hacks, and so much more. And now, let's get to the interview. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Chris. You have no idea how much of an honour this is to have somebody. I've wanted to have you on from the very start, but for the 5 people under a rock who've maybe not heard of you, could you give a quick introduction?
Sure. Yeah, you bet. My name is Chris Powell, and Ian, of course, thank you so much for having me on the show. Most people know me as the transformation specialist on a show that in America was called Extreme Weight Loss or Extreme Makeover Weight Loss Edition. And then overseas, it was A Year to Save My Life. It was Kilo por Kilo. It's gone by a number of different names as it was sold around the world. But nevertheless, my specialty and my passion is helping people through the journey of transformation. And so it was a great run sharing transformations with the world for 5 to 6 years. And then since then, I've continued on in the transformation journey, but instead building digital platforms so I can take people through transformation virtually now.
No, I love it. I mean, the big thing about wanting to have you on was you're not just somebody who talks how to do it. You've actually gone through it yourself. So you've been down in a low ebb and you've transformed your life. And a lot of people can relate better to that. Now, it's hard to imagine you as a skinny kid, but you said that was your introduction to, you put on the weight through having a weight bench in your home and working through it. But with all these 20 years of experience, what similarities do you notice with people in their aversion to transforming their life? Why do people talk it but not actually walk the walk, do you think?
It's a really good question. I think there's several answers to that. Number one, actually, there are multiple answers, but at the root of it all, because we can bring it all back to one place. It all boils down to the belief in yourself and believing that you can. And here's the one thing that I found, regardless of where you want to go in life, whether you want to lose weight, you want to gain muscle, you want to maybe improve, level up in your career, or whatever it is. A lot of times people, and especially the folks I've worked with, because the people I work with, they've come from the lowest of low places, and they try and they fail, and they try and they fail, and they try and they fail. And so over time, after so many attempts and so many failures, every single time that they fail, their esteem, their confidence, their belief in themselves takes a hit. Then they try and fail again. Then they try and fail again. But I can also trace it back to when they try, what are they doing wrong? And how can we tweak that so they do it right? Because the thing is, if we can simply tweak that tiny little equation right there, that moment in which they actually attempt or they set out to attempt to do something, if we can do that right, then we can set people on an upward path and you can genuinely change their lives and you can build the belief in themselves. And so what they do wrong, especially in the journey of transformation, is they take on too much at once. However they want to transform, the biggest mistake I've ever seen in my life, and what I've actually spent 20 years of my life trying to help people correct, is overcommitting, and they take on way too much at once. And there's a whole the psychological background behind that is wildly powerful. And once you start to change that conversation, you really speak to shrinking down those commitments to something that's truly doable so that they can actually accomplish that, like a single task day after day after day. Then we can actually start to build that personal integrity, that belief in themselves. And once someone believes in themselves, it's my job as a coach just to get out of their way. And if you want, we can dig into that. We can dig into that equation. We can dig into the psychology. We can go wherever you want here.
I love that because I'm definitely somebody that if I could get out my own way, I would be wonderful. I can give great advice, but actually sitting and making something a habit, I become a nightmare. And it's a family joke that I'll say I'll do something and I go backwards sometimes. But this is what I love about your journey is that you help people change by helping them love themselves and actually finding the demons, shall we call them, that are holding them back. And I think that's the beauty of it is that you've been there. So, you've had your own addiction problems, you've had your business problems. You're not just saying to somebody, this is the 5 key things to do and expecting them to do it. Is that where your genuine love comes from that for your clients, so you can actually see and know what they're going through? Do you think that's why you've been so successful over the years?
I think so, because it's one thing to tell somebody to do something, but if you haven't quite been there in their shoes, you'll never fully know. And while I'll even say I'm working with a client who's 500 pounds, I'll tell them straight up, look, I've never been 500 pounds. So what I do know is that I'll never know what that is like. But I've lost everything. I've struggled with my own addictions, and again, there is lots of similarities in addiction, of course. And so this is how I was able to overcome my issues, and then I've taken those lessons and I've translated it into helping people through any journey of transformation, and then ultimately, fortunately, I come with a little bit of credibility because most of my clients have seen a lot of my success stories in the past, and they're like, okay, well, maybe he knows what he's talking about. But yes, the passion comes from the fact that, look, I was in a really, really dark place in my life, several different times. And I'm passionate about my teachings and my principles because it's not something I read. It was something that I learned and I applied, and it genuinely changed my life. And because it empowered me and it helped me learn how to love myself, I want to give that to other people. And that's where this passion comes from, because it changed my life. And I just know that applying these principles and applying these different things, it can change anybody's life. And that's why it's easy to share it, because I genuinely believe in it. And I'm a walking example of it.
That's why I was really keen to have you on, because I still find sometimes that we can bombard people with all these amazing messages, but if they're not willing to change or change that mindset, they don't believe they can do it. And like you're saying, it's possible to do. And when I was deep down with depression, I've had issues like low self-esteem, breakups. You think that that's fine for people who are on a even keel. I can never do that, but you've done some amazing things, and you're doing amazing things daily, with your Transform app, with your try to move 1 million people. It's the fact that you've got it tattooed on your body, that your mission, it's an amazing thing. But for people who are struggling just now, I noticed a big thing they struggle with. It's when you ask them to change, it goes against their identity. They're no longer the chubby joker, the tall, lanky kid. It's the image they portrayed for themselves. How do we start chipping away at that? That's who I am, and change the story to become the success you want to be.
Yeah, and again, that's a really deep question when it comes to helping someone change their identity. And you're right. In fact, a lot of times people, they fear change because sometimes their identity is also the excuse that they use to rationalize why things don't work for them. And so here's the thing, and I've dealt with this, time and again with so many clients. Say they're dating someone and that person breaks up with them, and they go, well, they broke up with me because I'm overweight. What happens when you're not overweight? Then they actually have to deal with, well, it happened maybe because they weren't right for me. They simply did not like who I am. And again, these are difficult conversations to have. But the thing is, a lot of times, well, I didn't get the job because look at me. And so it's difficult for people to actually sometimes take ownership of, well, maybe it's not that. Maybe it's simply you weren't qualified. Maybe, who knows? It could be a bunch of different things. Changing the identity of someone, again, it's not something that just happens like that. In some cases, it has, but those cases are very, very rare. It is just like any journey. It is just one small step at a time. And the way I've always approached that with my clients, I've just always said, well, who do you want to be? And they will, well, I want to be, I want to be a kickboxer. I want to be a great dad. I want to be, I want to be a good husband. Well, you are right now. Like you could be that right now. You just simply have to live into it. But then here comes that belief thing again. So how do we get there? And if you don't mind, I'm actually going to go back about 5 minutes to something that you said. You said, you make a lot of commitments, and then sure enough, come 2 days from now, that commitment's out the window. You don't keep your word to yourself. Mm-hmm. Ian, that is the root of transformation. So can I tell you a little story? And this is one of the greatest lessons anyone could ever learn. Anyone who's listening right now, if you want to change your life, I'm going to just lay it all out for you right now. I'm going to give you the formula, because what I do is not special by any stretch of the imagination, but I will speak to just the deep inner workings of how we work behaviorally, spiritually, emotionally. And look, every transformation, if you really want to change your life, it's all rooted in one thing. And that word is integrity. Look, and here's the story. And a lot of people are like, hey, how do you do what you do? How do you help these people lose 200 pounds in a year? How do you help them literally just love themselves and start, feel like they can just run through walls, and they start businesses, and they can do all these different things? Say, here's how it goes. We actually, right off the bat, I'm going to give you a little bit of secret behind the show, or behind the method to the madness. Well, we'll actually do, 15, 20 transformations at a time. And in one fell swoop, we'll bring everyone to one location, sit them all down. And typically there's 40 to 50 people there that are looking to transform. And I'll stand up there in front of the room. And what I say right off the bat, it rubs everyone the wrong way. And I say, you are all here because you do not have any integrity. And you can imagine how that lands with a lot of these people. Mm-hmm. They're like, excuse me. And a couple of people, they'll get up and start walking out the door and go, whoa. Let me explain. Look, I'm sure that you all have integrity with other people. Like Gary, if you tell Joe that you're going to show up tomorrow at noon, you're probably there, 11:58, right? And Mary, if you tell Susan that you're going to pick her kids up from soccer practice at 5, you're there, right? Yeah. Well, why don't we try this then? Everyone have a seat. Why don't we try this? I just want to see a show of hands. How many of you have said to yourself, the diet starts Monday? And everyone goes, oh. How about 2018? This is my year. Or 2019. Here we go. This is it. This is going to be the turning point. How about 2020? How about I'm going to set my alarm early Monday morning, 5 o'clock. I'm going to do 45 minutes of cardio. And then you hit snooze the whole time. So to clarify this whole thing, it's not that you don't have integrity with other people. You don't have integrity. You're sitting here, and most of you, you're struggling. You're at the darkest level of your life, and it shows. The inside shows on the outside, because you're 400 or 500 pounds right now, and you're coming to me for help. You're here because you don't have any personal integrity. You have no integrity with yourself. You spend so much time focusing on fulfilling your commitments to other people, but you never fulfill your commitments to yourself. And if you had, you wouldn't be sitting here in the first place. I'm looking out here at this room of 40 to 50 people, and I don't see on each of you, I don't see 200 pounds of extra body fat. I see 200 pounds of broken promises. And if you learn that, look, transformation, physical transformation, look, yeah, we use diet and exercise as a vehicle, the physical vehicle to get there, but it has nothing to do with it. Physical transformation is all rooted in keeping your commitments to yourself, breaking it down to one single promise. And that's when it goes back to what I was saying about biggest mistake people make is overcommitting. They go, okay, I'm ready for physical transformation. I'm going to drink a gallon of water tomorrow. I'm going to measure all my 5 meals. I'm going to dial in all my macros. I'm going to do 45 minutes of cardio. I'm going to do an hour in the gym. Whoa. You just took on something that's so unattainable. Only 1% of the population can actually do it. Can actually have the time to do what you just said you're going to do. And you think you're going to come running out those doors and do that? Because guess what? When you say that, you're making commitments to yourself. And what you're doing is, it's almost like signing a contract with your soul. And people don't realize that. When you say you're going to do something, whether you say it out loud or you say it in here, it doesn't matter. Integrity is integrity, especially personal integrity. And when you're doing that, you are signing a contract with your soul. And if you keep that contract, you are rewarded with esteem and confidence and belief in yourself. With really, at the end of the day, what it's all about is happiness and feeling good about yourself and loving yourself. But if you break that contract, what happens? You lose belief in yourself, negative self-talk. Ultimately, you start to hate yourself. And I look out there and I say, Joe, how do you feel about yourself? Well, I hate myself. Gary, how do you feel about yourself? Look at me. I'm a disappointment. I hate myself. You want to know why? Because you broke promise after promise after promise after promise. You signed all these contracts with yourself and you broke them. So now, if you want to change your life forever, then you are going to learn to be a promise keeper to yourself, and you make a promise and you keep it, and then you keep it and you keep it and you keep it. And we're going to do this day after day after day after day until the treadmill and that salmon salad, they don't matter anymore. The most important thing is you keeping the commitment to yourself. And when you keep that commitment to yourself, you're going to do the time on the treadmill. You're going to eat the salmon salad, but it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with what's happening in here. And when you say it, when you understand that you're gambling, when you say you're going to do something, you're gambling with the most important thing in the world. So don't you dare make a promise that's so big that you cannot keep it. It shouldn't even be questionable. So Ian, when you're going to start your transformation, I guarantee if you don't keep it, you made the biggest mistake in the world and you overcommitted. You have to shrink it down to something. You got to say, look, I'm just going to drink an extra quart of water today. That's my commitment to myself. Do that day after day after day. Do that for 7 days straight. And if you can do that for 7 days straight, I will allow you to make another commitment to yourself until you start to get it. Until you start to realize it's not about the water, it's about the commitment. And my job as a coach is to keep you winning. And as long as you keep winning, your esteem and your belief in yourself will keep growing and growing and growing. And month after month, in 3-4 months, I go, Ian, all right, here we go. It's gonna be 30 minutes of cardio. You're gonna drink 2 extra quarts of water a day, and then you're gonna hit your calories today. You go, I'll do that. I will do that. Or you know what, Chris? It's too much. Let's go ahead and take out the calories. I'll do 2 quarts of water and I'll do 15 minutes on the treadmill. Okay, cool. Hey, I get it. Because you understand you're not going to gamble with the most important thing in the world, and that's your word. It all boils down to your word to yourself, personal integrity. That's the game changer. That's the secret to transformation right there.
See, that sort of blew me away because when I was looking into and I first heard that, I was like, it's unbelievable how it's not 50 things. It's just 1, 2, small thing. I think I read somewhere that you've got a 4-point plan for people. It's promise, carb, mission, and shredder. You just keep it that simple and you build it from there. I think it's at the point that people overcomplicate it, that we imagine that coming out the comfort zone is going to be this terrifying level of like, we're going to have to change everything about us, we're new haircuts, new style, we're going to have to be a different person. How do you start that change to getting over that fear? That like you're the heavy person going into the gym, or you're wanting to go for a walk outside, but you're worried what the neighbors think. What sounds
Right.
petty to somebody who's not in that boat, but to somebody that could destroy their life. And I know that feeling when you're worrying what people are judging you and stuff. How do you
Sure.
start getting over
Sure.
that fear? Because you really make that person love themselves. But how do you get that
Yes.
initial inertia?
Yes, I totally, I I get that. I get that I don't fully understand, but I can hear people bring that to me, and I feel
Mhm.
for that. And that, because of course there's been a lot of situations that I've stepped into where I felt like a fish out of water, and I felt uncomfortable, and I did not want to be in a certain location because I felt like people were watching me. But so you actually brought up a really good example, and well, let's talk about this. Walking into gym and not feeling confident in yourself. And that's why with a lot of my people, I'll say, look, if you're not ready for the gym yet, that's fine. Let's go ahead and let's start building your confidence at home. And so then we will dive right into the commitment issue, and we'll let them start making their promises and start building up their personal integrity. We call it integrity momentum. So they start feeling better about themselves. But then maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks, sometimes months down the road, depending on where they're at, hey, if going into a gym is something you really want to do and you want to transition your workouts there, here's what I want you to do. And I've done this. Drive down to the gym, walk through the doors, have a seat in the chair for 60 seconds, then get up and walk out. That's all I want you to do. The approach is the same. Baby steps. Say you don't want to go outside, you don't want to do laps around the block because you don't want people honking your horn at you. Just walk out your door. Walk out your door,
Mhm.
walk to your next door neighbor's house, turn around and come back. Tomorrow, walk 2 houses down. The next day, walk 3 houses down. Look, you got the rest of your life to do this. What's the rush? The thing is, especially if you're going to walk out your door and if you think you're going to do like 3 laps around the block, and if a car, so you start honking your horn and go, oh, I knew that was going to happen. And you come running back home and then you lock yourself in the house. Stop. Hey, just walk 3 doors down, turn around and come back. And then do it again. And before you know it, you're going to start to feel more and more comfortable. And also, here's the best part. Quite often, and I know a lot of people out there have experienced some really, really terrible things, especially at the end of the finger pointing from other people. But you're also going to realize that about 97% of the people out there are really good. 3% are a-holes. They're just dirtbags. They're scumbags.
Definitely.
But 97% of the people are freaking amazing out there. And they're going to see you and they're going to give you a thumbs up or a high five. You walk into a gym and you'll be blown away at the support that you can receive there and the friends that you can meet there. And I know it can seem a little bit intimidating at first, and maybe it all depends on the gym that you're going to. But nevertheless, I'm telling you guys, 3% of the people out there are dark. 97% of the people out there are good. They're good people. They're
Mm.
loving and they support you. And like they see you out there, then they're going to be like, dude, good for you. Go get them. So, but again, no rush in this thing. Baby steps. That's always the approach. That's always the approach that for me in my experience has won time and time and time again.
Because that's something I do say to people is, just because you're maybe afraid to go into the gym doesn't mean you can't go for a walk. Doesn't mean you can take the dog somewhere or sit and do a couple press ups at home, or just a wee bit more. Like, because my dad's type 2 diabetic, and we keep trying to get him involved without calling it fitness, just moving a bit more, just getting some stuff around. And it's tried to change his attitude towards it. So I know what it's like
Yeah.
when you have this kind of encourage. But for those who are sitting now, it could be something really deep down. It could be like, I don't like the word demon because it has this sort of religious connotation, but for people who have these things that are really holding them back, like real issues, how do you help somebody start believing in themselves, loving themselves, but actually dealing with that one thing? Because you said you've dealt with the diet and the fitness in 45 minutes.
Right.
But then you transform them. You take them from that dark place and show them where they can find the light because you've done it
You
yourself.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, I've had the amazing opportunity to work side by side with some phenomenal psychologists and psychiatrists. And so typically what you've seen on the show, when we actually helped a lot of those people through some really dark times, I
Mhm.
understand where my scope of practice is at its limits. And so I allow that's when it's important for the psychologist or psychiatrist to step in.
Mhm.
Typically a psychologist in this situation to help people deal with past trauma. But being able to actually work side by side with the psychologist as people are dealing with this, and for me to kind of to allow myself to be that like a super friend as far as a guide on the journey. One of the most important things is I'm so sorry. There are emails coming through. Do you hear a pinging at all, or are we good?
No, that's good.
Okay, fantastic. It's in my ear. It's like ping, ping. I was like, I just want to make sure it's not interrupting this. But yeah, so when it comes to actually helping people through the journey, most of the folks that I spend my time working with have dealt with some really extreme trauma. And then remember, extreme trauma is all relative. I mean, for someone, it might have been their dog dying when they're a child, and others it could be severe abuse or death or loss, whatever that might be. So it's all relative. It's all how we perceive that experience in our lives and the story that
Mhm.
we tell around it. And so but a lot of times significant trauma holds people back from moving forward in their lives because it's so painful. And that's also for a lot of the folks that I've worked with and a lot of people out there in general. That is quite often the root of the hunger that they feel. Because and when I say hunger, what they're doing is they're they're there's an emotional hole there or the emotional pain, and then they're using food to numb it. And they're using that food to numb that pain from the past. And sometimes that they used it to numb the pain from the past to a point where they don't even realize they're feeling that pain from the past, but they're continually numbing it. But that's an emotional hunger, not a physical hunger. So it's really important that we can clear the past. That's the verbiage that we use. You must clear the past in order to move forward. And in order to do that, there's a lot of different ways, but it's also really important. Number one, um, that when I'm helping someone clear the past, whether it is confronting an issue or trauma, that like, it's always going to be confronting an issue or trauma. But if it involves it like confronting an individual, I always usually have the psychologist help me through
Mhm.
that side of the journey just to make sure, because I understand where my scope of practice is and where it is not. But nevertheless, being able to witness that and being able to be side by side with that individual as they're going through that, a lot of times it could be, and it's again, it's all unique to the individual. So it could be visiting a grave and actually, or maybe writing a letter to someone who's traumatized you. It could be making a phone call, or it could simply be, um, I mean, it could be a number of different things, but usually it involves some sort of there's a confrontation, and I hope that doesn't come with a negative connotation, but
Mhm.
because the confrontation does not have to be violent or angry or anything like that, but it's going back to the past and unboxing some of this pain, and literally then from there working through that, starting to deal with it, talking about it. A really powerful method I've actually seen a handful of psychologists use is they'll actually take someone back to that moment of trauma, and then they'll have them tell the story in detail. And then they'll have them tell the story again in detail and again and repeat it again and again. And the more the individual repeats it, the more they actually separate the emotion from it. And you can actually start to see it as the story, the event. It was an event that happened. And then they placed all this meaning on it of you're not worthy. It was your fault. You did this. You're this, you're that. And then they can start to actually separate the emotion from it the more they actually tell the story. And that I've seen that be a really powerful moment for a lot of people, where they, especially when they're talking about some sort of horrendous abuse or loss that they experienced when they were younger. And again, the more they talk about it and they just continue to tell the story over and over again, it becomes just that. It becomes a story. and you watch it, and the first 3 times they tell the story, there's tears and body convulsing, and then the 10th time that they tell it, because it takes time to actually work through this, the 10th time they tell it, so there's no more emotion. And I've seen that be a really powerful tool. And again, it's all relative. I don't necessarily want anyone to go out there and just start digging through this without also seeking proper advice. Because if the trauma is deep enough, it is wonderful to have a therapist to actually walk you through that process as well, so you can really deal with it. So I don't know what that looks like, but it's also a really powerful exercise that you could actually try. But it can be very painful as well. It is painful, but it's also very healing.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I've kind of dealt with when I was a bit younger. Like, I was bullied in primary school, and I could think back now and imagine me being back there at that, And I remember I've gone through cognitive behavior therapy, where it's like they call it talking therapy. So you actually learn to deal with your thoughts in another way. You realize that voice in your head isn't you. That's just your brain firing out like automatic messages saying, well, this is what you normally think about, so let me give you some reassurance that agrees with you. And you start realizing you're not that person. But I think we have to remove that stigma of mental health or therapy and like say to people, it's not a weakness to ask for help. It's a strength to say, I need this fix in my life. Let's get on to it and let's get on, let's move it. Is that something you found a lot of people struggle with, that kind of being open and saying, I need help. I'm not the man. I don't need to be fixing everything. I can ask for help when I need it.
Absolutely. It's really interesting because when I was helping people transform 15 years ago, the mental health was a conversation that people really avoided because of that stigma, and especially men. That I really struggled, especially with my male clients, because there's the ego, there's the persona, there's the stigma behind depression and anxiety and all these mental struggles, and they feel like, oh, if I talk about my feelings, then that's weakness. No, and Brene Brown says it best. I mean, vulnerability is the greatest marker of courage that you can ever have. But it's one thing to hear it, and it's another thing to actually turn around and be vulnerable in front of people. And my male clients really struggle with that. But what's so cool, Ian, is that the conversation nowadays is changing. And people are starting to really open up this conversation of mental health, because guess what? It is a very much a reality that we all need to deal with, because we're all struggling in some form or fashion. Every person out there is dealing with a struggle. And now we can actually start to have these conversations. I don't know I'm not sure what the statistics look like in the UK, but here in the US, now some 50% of adults are reporting some form of anxiety or depression, which is significantly higher than we've ever had before. And people are finally starting to say, yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. I'm really struggling here. And it's like, oh, fantastic. And because the thing is, if you don't admit it, if we don't open up this conversation, you can't get the help that you need. And guess what? And I know you talked about you struggle with depression. Me too. Guess what? And a lot of people out there will like, well, yeah, I struggle with depression, but I wasn't sure how to handle it, and I'm going to be fine. Well, guess what? I tried medication. It actually got to a point where I was recommended to a psychiatrist, and I tried multiple different kinds of medication, and the first couple did not work for me at all, but then one did. And as soon as that one did, I went from a state of real darkness. And I'm sure you get this if you've battled with depression, like just darkness. I knew within a couple of days, I knew within a couple of days of taking this medication, I was like, wow, I needed that. Wow, I feel like myself again. Oh my gosh, I wish I had done this 5 years ago, And guess
Definitely.
what? And then I open up the conversation with other people. I'm like, hey, guess what? So I started taking Wellbutrin, and I just feel like myself again. They go, okay, no way, me too. But I didn't want to talk to anybody about it. I go, no way, me too. Oh, hey, heck. And then I started talking about it. I started even talking about it on my social media, and everyone's like, yeah, me too, me too, me too. And I was like, wow, what do you know? There's a lot of people out there that are struggling, and now that we can open up this conversation, sure enough, you don't feel alone. And that is another massive step to healing, is when you realize you're not alone. If you are struggling, number one, it's okay to ask for help. Whether that's a psychologist, just to help talk you through this, with cognitive behavioral therapy, or whatever therapy that you're seeking that can just give you the tools to help navigate some of these stressful situations in life, or help you heal the past. Or if you really need it and you're actually in a chemical depression, it's okay to talk to a psychiatrist and see if there is something out there that could work for you as far as the medication goes. And it could be a shorter term fix, or it could be a long term fix. But what if it's a short term fix to help you, again, to help get that mental clarity, and maybe it can actually help reset that neurochemistry so that you can transition off of it, which I did. Medication was wonderful for me for about just over a year. And then I transitioned off, and I'm still myself. And I'm more myself than I was for a long time. And it was like, wow, that stuff works. So if you're in a dark place, there are solutions. And the only way for you to actually start to find those solutions, to finally be yourself again, and to be able to actually have like an excitement and vigor and zest for life, number one, you got to talk about it. And then number two, you got to give yourself permission to just get out there and do something about it, to again, seek some sort of help, because it's out there. And if this is the rest of your life, and we are so lucky to be born humans alone, and if you play your cards right, you might get 90 years on this earth. Let's make the most of it.
I was smiling the whole way through that because it was making me think of when I took fluoxetine, like it's like Prozac, I think, in America, and it suddenly shut down my brain. It made me stop hearing like the 50,000 obsessive thoughts in my head, like I had OCD as well. And suddenly it was like, oh, this is what normality's like. This is fantastic. And then you start thinking with the cognitive behavior therapy, it sounds silly at the start. Then you get somebody going, no, but that's not an actual real thought. That's just your brain saying that, and you go, oh, right. And that's the beauty, is if people would go and get help and speak out, or speak to the parents, speak to the friends, and if we were a bit more open and we were more empathetic to each other, we'd realise that everybody's going through crap in their own life. I think there was somewhere, I can't remember who said it, it was, before you think you're depressed, check you're not surrounded by arseholes first. And that could be,
Yes.
that's the good quote. And that's what I really like about it. It's like, I think we're finally knocking down this veil of masculinity, that we have to be super tough, we have to do this, we have to do that. It's your life. It's a short amount of time. Why do it being sad, try to be tough in front of somebody that you probably don't even like in the first place?
Yeah.
So as we're doing these changes and as we're seeing some great transformations, how do we start to lock this in? How do we start thinking of, Paul McKenna has this great way of, you visualize, he's like a hypnotist, and he has this way of where you see the person you want to be. You close your eyes and imagine the virtues of that person, and you step into that person to become them. I know it's quite out there for some people, but how do you start saying to somebody, you've lost 5 stone, 3 stone, whatever, you're looking fantastic? How do you make them believe that, to accept that?
It's wild. That's the exact method that I use. I say, who do you want to be? It goes back to the identity conversation. Who do you want to be? And what are the virtues of that person? Let's actually list the traits, the character traits, and the personality traits of that person. And like, what is that person? And what we'll do is we'll trace, what does that person do from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed at night? And when they encounter situations, how do they deal with those situations? And it's wild, because you can actually map that person you want to be, that successful person, right? We map it from sun up to sundown, and we say, so there you go. That's the map of the person that you're seeking to become. Why can't you be that now? Give me one reason why you can't do that now. Like, okay, so you wake, the alarm clock goes off, and that person does not hit snooze. They put both feet on the floor. Can you do that? Yeah, I can do that. So then they immediately walk to the refrigerator, they open up the door, and there's booze, and there's cold pizza, and then
have you seen my fridge?
Right. So, and there, or there's, egg whites and yogurt and granola. What does
Mm.
that person do? Well, they eat the egg whites, yogurt, and granola. Can you do that? Yeah, I can do that. Okay, let's go to the next thing. And then they're driving to work, and they're going to drive right by their favorite fast food spot. Right, this is the spot that they hit every day. Who's the person that you want to be? Do they swing? Do they take a quick right into the drive-through, or do they continue on to work because they just had an enjoyable breakfast, right there at home? Well, they're not going to pull in there. They're going to drive to work. Can you do that? Yeah, I can do that. Okay, that's good. Let's just do that for now. And whatever happens for the rest of the day. But then the next day, how much further do we want to go? You see, like, again, we're going to baby step this thing all the way through. And before you know it, you got them covered morning to night. But the thing is, once they realize, well, that's the person I want to be, that's their virtues, that's their personality, that's their characteristics, yes, we can all live into it. But you have to write it down. You have to actually, it has to be tangible. You have to be able to visualize it, and not just up here. You got to put it down on paper. It's got to be in front of you, because it's so easy to forget this up here. So it's really important. You have to extract it so that you can actually follow the map.
Because that's something I'm quite a systems orientated person. Like, I want to have like the week set up. So, I've got nights for jiu-jitsu, I've got nights for doing podcasts, I've got nights for five-a-side football and things like that. I need to have it kind of scheduled like that. Is that a way we can make fitness, transformation, whatever you want to call it, a system, part of our life? Is that the kind of the thing that everybody needs to do to make it successful? And how do we analyze the data, or how track it even? Or is that overthinking it perhaps?
I think you're a few steps ahead. That's for sure, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So like you, I'm a systems person as well. So I've actually built it into my system. I went to jujitsu last night, and then I'm going to
Cool.
do jujitsu again tomorrow, and then Friday. So, like, I've got my own systems as well. But while a lot of people can function well that way, sometimes building systems is still a little bit too overwhelming. So I always like to meet people where they are and slowly lure them into a system, is what I like to do. But ultimately, do I like to build one? Yes, because systems will help you keep your word to yourself, is what they do. They help you organize your life so there's not as much chaos, because in the chaos, it's easy to get lost. And when you're lost in it, it's easy to then fall out of the contracts that you've written to yourself as far as your commitments go. So yes, I do believe systems are an answer. And also, I mean, when it comes to tracking things, that's the beauty of technology today. And that's one of the main reasons I started building app technologies. So like, you can actually track your behavior. There's a gazillion apps out there where you can track your macros, you can track your hydration and your workouts and all this other stuff. And guess what? They're freaking awesome. And I think that it is going to be the future, because the thing is, if you can track your behaviors and your adherence to those behaviors every day, well, then it answers all of your questions as to why you're achieving results or not. If you're not achieving results, you can actually look and say, how many days was I consistent with my nutrition and my hydration and even my mindfulness? Like, look what's happening here. And you can actually see, well, you're only 54% consistent with it. Well, that answers a lot of questions. But if you're 90% consistent with it, well, now you can actually, well, that totally explains why you're 15 stone down on the scale, right?
I love it.
So, yeah.
Because that's a big thing about it, is everybody thinks, okay, I've started walking. Okay, oh, there's an app that can measure how much water I'm drinking. Oh, there's an app that can measure my food. I'll take pictures of every meal I do, and then before you know it, they've failed on that one, so they forget to do the water, and oh, I'll start that tomorrow. Oh, wait, and before they know it, they're 2 weeks down, they're eating a pizza, and they're like 3 stone back up on where you were. And I've gone through that, where it's, you run before you can walk, and you start going, oh, what happened here? And I think that's the beauty of you can actually create these global communities where you can show people that there are people like you who want to be, like the world's best friend, who want to help and support each other. It doesn't matter who you're surrounded with right now. And I think that, I don't know if you know the crab metaphor, where you put a bunch of crabs in a bucket, and as one climbs out, they all pull each other back. I love
Yes.
that. I had friends like that for a while, where you would, I'm going to do this. Oh, don't be so stupid, and you'd be ridiculed, you'd be mocked. And then suddenly I had to step away and go, right, they're never going to help me start a podcast. They're never going to help me speak to amazing people like yourself. They're never going to help me do jiu-jitsu because they want to go drinking instead because it's scary. Why do we surround ourselves by people who want to sit and drink and do drugs or all these kind of things? And how do we get rid of these friends, shall we call them?
Yes, I know what you're saying. It's okay. First of all, so wild you mentioned the crab analogy. I just told that story on my social media like 3 weeks ago. And I think it's brilliant and it's true. And there's so many parallels between that and human behavior. And it is wild because a lot of times you have an individual who makes the commitment to changing their lives, and then they have this support system that just keeps pulling them back, whether it's through guilt or through sabotage or whatever it is. Okay, first of all, and I do want to address that because this is a very real part of transformation. It is highly likely, and in fact, I've seen this more often than not, which is kind of sad, but it's just human behavior, that someone decides to change their life and their social support system thinks otherwise. And then they, again, will sabotage and they'll pull them back in. And all of a sudden, you sit down with your friends and they all have a beer and fish and chips, and you ordered the salad. And they're like, oh, you're too good to drink a beer and eat fish and chips with us. Right. And you're like, look, I'm just trying to be a little bit healthier. Like, oh, sorry. And you're like, oh, come on, guys, And so here's the thing. This is probably one of the most difficult dynamics of the transformation journey, because we are social beings and we are programmed in our most deepest levels to unite with others for our safety and for our survival. And so that camaraderie is something that we all seek. We all seek to love and to be loved, and so we need that family. We need that support system. And it is really difficult when that system that's around you, and when they have bad habits. There's a massive study done by the New England Journal of Medicine that was done over like 30 years with some 50,000 people, and they actually found all the correlations. And this is where they actually started tying obesity as a social disease, because they could actually have twins, separate the twins. And so there's a massive genetic component there. One of them has overweight friends, the other one has fit friends. Guess which one ends up packing on the pounds? The one with all the overweight friends. And then they stay that way because they don't want to lose that system. And so this is where it gets really, really difficult. And this is also where sometimes you have to have difficult conversations with your support system about your journey, what you want to do. But this is also where the beauty of the technology we have today is massive, because there are all of these incredible online groups now that you can join, and you can be surrounded by people who genuinely support and love you on the journey that you're on. Because then, here's the thing, sometimes your support system, it's your family, it's your cousins, it's like, it is your close physical network. And here's the thing, you don't necessarily need to remove them from your life. Maybe sometimes you do if it's extremely harmful. For example, some of my best friends, when I was hooked on painkillers, they were my drug dealer. And so about 5 of my closest friends, my good buddies, they were also some of the nicest people in the world, could never hurt anybody. They had the best of intentions, but they were all heavily addicted to drugs. And guess what? I got addicted to drugs. And it was hard because they're genuinely good people. But when I tried to step out of it, it made them sad. And I felt that guilt. And so it was hard. But ultimately, I did need to remove myself from that group in order for me to sober up. I had to get away from that. And I kept that distance for years. And since I've reconnected with all of them, and they all had to go through their own journeys, and some of them are really, really sad. We lost one of them. But nevertheless, when it comes back to that social support system, and here's the other thing, the root behind a lot of it, when it's the crabs in the pot that are pulling you down, a lot of times it's not that they have bad intentions. It's not that they're bad people. They're scared to lose you in their life. And because they haven't had, and a lot of times you changing your life shines a big spotlight on them not willing to or them not wanting to. And it makes them feel bad about themselves. So they're not bad, but they're just, number one, their own self-esteem and their own issues, they're going to project them onto you. So that's probably why you're feeling that animosity or that hurt. And then on top of that, or that fear, because all of a sudden you're leaving the pot. They're like, dude, I don't want to leave you in my life. Like, I don't want to lose you. And they come back, and they're going to try to grab at you. So it's a really difficult dynamic here.
It's time for a quick break. There are millions of potential products to buy, so how do you know which ones are worth your hard-earned money? Simple. You go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and explore those that will transform and improve your life. You'll find deals, listener exclusives, and special offers with some great companies. Recommendations are 100% honest and only on items Ian has tried or believes in. The companies showcased will make you a better man in all areas of your life. Simply go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and level up.
Because it's certainly something I've gone through, and it took me a while. Like when I first heard it, it was from my dad, I think, years ago, and I was like, yeah, that's quite, and I just went, aye. And it took me a few years to realize what he meant, that you could apply it to like friendships. And a lot of times I was thinking it meant they were doing it by evilness or they were being bad about doing it. But it's like you're saying, is a lot of times it's they don't want to lose you. But it can also be the friends who can't stop you making a mistake. You're sitting they're all having pints and they go, no, you're on a diet. Remember, stick on the cola or the water or whatever. It can allow you to do the bad habits with them because they allow you to express the negative habits or whatever. And that's what I struggled with. It's if I hang around with them, I'm never going to go and do the things I wanted. Doesn't mean I have to cut them completely out, but I need to make friends who are going to motivate and push me and things. And it did take me a long time to realize that. And I think that's why I really like this kind of podcast is now is like, I realize it's 1% better every day. It's not transform your life tomorrow. It's chip away at everything, learn a skill, learn how to do it. And I think a lot of people just now are listening and going, oh, he's got some amazing guests. But I can't transform my life like a wrestler and train up and become massive like, say, The Rock and become as cool as Jason Statham. And I keep saying to people, no, don't do it like that. One step at a time. Change your habits.
Okay.
So what habits would you want people to introduce once they've started fixing themselves? And how do we deal with the mistakes? Does it become a habit so you don't make mistakes? Or is it a way you can just reset like a mantra?
Yeah, great questions. And I'm excited to share with you my formula and my solution for this. So when it comes to transformation, again, what I've always typically done is going back to honoring those single commitments to yourself first, like how to take the very first step, right? There's might be a lot of people listening that say, okay, where do I start? Okay, you start by making something that we like to call a power promise. And it is a very, very small commitment that no matter what, no matter how crazy life gets with all the ups and downs, you can always keep that one thing every day. So it might be drinking an extra quart of water a day. It might be doing 2.5 minutes of movement a day, which is actually why I created my nonprofit, to be that first step for millions of people. It might be just sitting and being mindful for 2 minutes a day or from a minute a day. Again, something so small that no matter what, you can still keep that one action every day. And that action keeps that switch of transformation on. Then you can build commitments on top of that. And if those ever come toppling down, you still have it. Here's the way I like to think about it. It's like climbing a mountain. That's what we're doing. We're on a journey up a mountain. Good rock climbers, what do? You'll see them, they'll climb 20 feet and then they anchor themselves in, right? And then they'll make sure that rope is secure. They'll climb 20 more feet, anchor in. Why do they anchor in? Because, and that they climb, but if they ever lose their footing up here and everything comes falling down, they've got that lifeline, that anchor. And that anchor is that power promise. That's where you start. So I leave that to whoever it is that's listening. What's it going to be? Is it going to be water? because that's a step in the right direction. Is it going to be movement, 2.5 minutes of just moving your body? That's a step in the right direction. Maybe it's going to be mindfulness, just calming your body down, becoming present here and now, focusing on your breath, doing a total body check-in for 2 minutes. Those are all beautiful steps in the right direction that can be that power promise. They can be that anchor that if you lose your footing, as long as you're doing that, then you're always still in the game. Now, if you just give it all up, guess what? You're gonna fall, and you're gonna fall really far. And we've seen this time and again. So that's one of the best things we do. Now, here's the thing. You said, what happens if you make mistakes or if you mess up? So if you're climbing and then all of a sudden, and you're taking on commitments, you're drinking a gallon, 4 liters of water a day. I'm going to try to make the conversions over to you guys. So you're drinking 4 liters of water a day. Say you're doing 15 minutes of cardio, or maybe you didn't even keep your power promise for the day. How do we heal that? Because number one, it's going to happen. You're going to mess up. You're going to make mistakes. People chase perfection in this process. And the moment they don't do everything perfectly, they go, oh, that's it. I knew I couldn't do it. Give me a pizza. Give me a beer. Right? And it's like, no. Like the transformation and this journey through life, no one does it perfectly. Perfection doesn't exist. So stop chasing something and stop setting such stupidly high expectations on yourself that you can never reach, because you're guaranteed to set yourself up for failure. So instead, what we do is we say, I know a mistake is I know it's going to happen. And sometimes the craziest day comes by and you just, who knows? Maybe you end up spending half the day in the hospital visiting someone, or maybe you're in it yourself, or who knows? You blow out your tire and it's pouring rain, whatever. Here's what you do. And it's a 3-step process that we use. And I do this with everyone as they're going through the journey of transformation. We confess. That's step number 1. Whatever the commitment was that you made to yourself that you broke, you have to have somebody that you can share it with. So this is where no man is an island, and we actually need each other to help us grow through life, to help us on any kind of journey that we're on. So you actually, we always encourage anyone who's going through the journey to have a super friend. And a super friend is someone that you can actually have as far as that human connection, so that when you do mess up, and it's going to happen all the time, maybe daily, maybe weekly, maybe whatever it is, but you have to, number 1, confess to that person. That's the hardest part. That is, you want to talk about the hardest part of transformation. It's when you mess up, or you make a mistake, or you break a commitment to yourself. It's confessing. And it doesn't matter how big or how small it was. You confess it, and then we reassess it. And we say, okay, so say the confession is, you're like, dude, I was supposed to do 30 minutes of cardio today, and I didn't do it. And then then your super friend, or whoever it is that you've confided in. So you know what, though? It's because I started this new job and it's keeping me crazy busy. And honestly, I don't know if I'm going to squeeze in 30 minutes every day. I don't think I can. Well, then it's a stupid freaking promise, because you're setting yourself up for failure. And the only way you're going to transform is to keep winning. So then what would you do?
Sure.
Well, what can you do? Well, at 30 minutes, that ain't your promise anymore. That's not the contract you're about to sign with yourself, because you know you're going to break it. Let's shrink it down. Well, can you do 10 minutes? Yeah, I could do 10 minutes. Of course I could do 10. Okay, well, there you go. If you want to do 10 minutes, let's reassess this. So confess, then reassess. And then once you've actually got a commitment that you know you can keep, and you can keep winning, and you start climbing again, you recommit. So confess, reassess, recommit. And if people keep doing that, nothing can stop you. I'm telling you that right now. Every time you mess up, confess, reassess, recommit, and that is the magic formula to getting back up on your feet and moving forward with more enthusiasm than you've ever had before, as opposed to, well, I knew I couldn't do it. I'm dumb. Oh, I'm not smart enough. I don't have the grit or the willpower. F that, dude. Confess, reassess, recommit. You're back on your feet, and you are flying ahead. That's what it takes.
I love that. I love that rock, the rock climbing way of looking at it, because it's true. You put in your safety, whatever they're called. So if you do fall, you don't fall all the way back down. I love that. I'm actually really disappointed just now, because we're 55 minutes in, and I'm already thinking, let's go here, let's go here, let's go here. And I would love to have you back on. And I've tried to keep it general, because I know we could go so deep, but the Move 1 Million, we've got to talk about that, because I think this is such a unique thing for people to come into, because like you've said, stop making massive promises, make small changes and build up. And I think that's the beauty of the Move 1 Million, the Transform app, these sorts of things. You've got a global collective of a community. You do the daily kind of, like mindset stuff. You do the mental goals setting. You tell them stories. You give them little workouts that they can do from home. No excuses. They don't need gyms and stuff. Where did this motivation for this come from, and how could we use this, or how can we encourage more people to use this?
Well, so I've built two massive platforms. And the first one, the motivation was, it was the people that I was working with on the show. I could only work with 15 people a year, but over the 5-year span that I was doing that, we received over 1 million emails from people asking for help. And so that's where, as soon as the show ran its course, I dove right into the technology side of things, and I built the entire journey of transformation beginning to end, from the mental component to mental preparedness to hydration, nutrition, movement, everything. And I mean, it took me, I'm still building the app. I mean, I started it 5 years ago, and it's a never ending work in progress. And it's just, again, every single time I learn something, anytime I could create more to the journey, I put it into the Transform app. Now, and which has been an incredible experience for me. And also, like, it's really cool because on the show, I was helping people lose, 200 pounds, and I was able to do 76 transformations. Through the app, we've done 70 something thousand transformations, which is so cool.
Unbelievable.
Like, it's so much fun. But then, so Move 1 Million, last year, March, COVID, and all of a sudden everything shut down and everyone's quarantined and people are more sedentary than ever. It was when the first reports of anxiety, depression, and suicide started coming out, and I realized how many people are suffering out there. And I started spending a lot of time. I was going through my own personal struggles at the time with the split from my wife, and I was on a journey to just try to find peace and happiness in my life, because I wasn't there. I was in a kind of an empty, dark place. And I, at first, it was really interesting because at first I went and I started 3 different businesses, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to grow like my financial portfolio. And I like to climb the hills around here in Arizona where I can look down on the lights. And I was actually climbing up one of the hills here, and at night, and I looked down on all the lights, and it came to me. I was like, dude, I'm chasing happiness and peace, thinking that some kind of financial success is going to bring that to me. I was chasing the dollar. And I was like, man, that's not where happiness is. As I'm looking down on all these lights, I said, if I'm going to find peace and happiness, it's going to be serving all of these people. And because I'm looking down on a city of 4.5 million people in the metro area, and I see all the lights. And I said, when I can serve them, that's where I'm going to find my happiness. So I'm not going to chase the dollar anymore. I'm going to chase minutes of service. And that's how I'm going to measure my success, is in how much I can serve all of these people. And I'll count it one life at a time, just like the tattoo right down my side. I went right back to the commitment I made 13 years ago. And so sure enough, I ended up coming down the hill and turning on a documentary on Japan, on the country of Japan. And in the documentary, it was wild because it's like, hey, every day in Japan, it was in 1928, Emperor Hirohito had a major issue. Japan was growing. He wanted to unite the country and to build camaraderie among the citizens, but also he had major problems that the life expectancy for the average human in Japan was 40 to 45 years old. He wanted to expand their life expectancy. And so he was a big believer in physical fitness, but also the power of people moving together. So he mandated across the country 3.5 minutes, set to the same music. It's the same movements every day. Every school, every factory, every corporation, everyone in Japan. At 6:30 in the morning, the radio started with the music, and everyone went through their motions in Japan. Everyone did the exact same motions together. That's 1928. By 1955, Japan was the healthiest country in the world. Fast forward to now, 93 years later, 27 million continue to do what's called Ragio Taiso, radio calisthenics, every day. It stayed and it grew over 93 years. They continue to be for 6 decades straight, one of the top 5 healthiest countries in the world. It was so powerful at bringing the country together that in 1945, when the US occupied Japan, we prohibited Ragio Taiso because he built his armies. He brought them together so powerfully, he actually built his armies off of it. That was the very beginning. And I was looking at this and I was thinking, oh my gosh, we're more sedentary than ever. We're anxious. We're depressed. There's division. The whole nation, in America alone, the whole country is divided. What can we do to come together? This is what we need. We need the modern version of Ragio Taiso. And oh my gosh, I got a degree in exercise science and biomechanics and physiology. I can create a total body movement. I can set it to new modern music, and I build apps. So I'm going to build a whole app platform. I'm going to create this entire thing, and that's my gift. I want to give it to the world, and instead of 3 minutes, I'm going to shorten it to 2.5 minutes so no one can say I don't have time. And it's a total body warm-up that anyone can do, standing or sitting. Kids, corporations, factory workers, hospital workers, everybody can do it. And again, I teamed up with my friend Amy Van Dyke, and she was a 6-time Olympic gold medalist swimmer. She broke her back, and so now she's in a wheelchair. So she does a seated version. I do the standing version, and we end up building this massive platform. And now we're giving it. It's everyone's for free, and so we're serving. Gosh, we're in probably we're in multiple school districts here in Arizona. I'm actually going out to Florida in October to speak to all the PE teachers, all the public school PE teachers across the entire state, so they can bring Move 1 Million to Florida.
Awesome.
We're serving Phoenix Children's Hospital now, Foundation for Senior Living. And so we just opened up our doors 5 months ago. It took us some time to build it. We opened up our doors. We're moving 76,000 people a day now. And it's free. In fact, all the kids in our schools, right after the Pledge of Allegiance, they all stay standing and they all do Move 1 Million, which is the movement together, which brings us all together. And then right after the 2.5 minutes of movement, it's 2 minutes of mindfulness. So then I take everyone through a mindfulness exercise to bring them to here and now, to reduce stress, anxiety, depression. And then we leave everyone with positive intentions, letting them know that you're strong and you can do anything that you set your mind to and you put your body in action toward. And then on behalf of myself and everyone who's moved today, you're loved and we believe in you. And I get to say that every single day to thousands of kids. And it feels really good. And this is just the beginning. I mean, this Move 1 Million, we're going to take this across the nation and around the world.
I love that. I love the way that you've managed to take something where you were having 76 people lives there could affect, and you've taken your gifts now to thousands and hopefully to millions. And that was going to be a question I was going to bring in, was how do we encourage other people to transform? Because I know like adults kind of have to find their own journey. But for kids, I became an uncle to two nephews and a niece, and it changed my life. I never realized how much walking, how much playing, how much mayhem that can be involved. And I think that's the beauty, is if we can get kids early and teach them mindfulness, teach them physical activity. And I love the fact that you involve your own kids in this, and you show them that kids can do it. Your friend who in the wheelchair can do it, that there's no reason, and it's a small commitment. And it's something that you can feel pride and bounce off the next thing and the next thing and build from there. Is there a way we can encourage our children, our nephews, or whoever it is, to become more, to eliminate potential problems that our current generations are going through?
I think Gandhi said it best. He said, "Be the change that you want to see in the world." So it's up to us to be the change that we want to see in our kids, in our family, in your nephews, in your children, in our community. Like it's going to start with us. And the more that we can do it, because the thing is, I mean, people are brilliant. In fact, in the fact that they can feel genuine, they can feel authentic, or I should say, they can feel authenticity. And if you're talking the talk, but you're not walking the walk, it won't make any difference in the world. But if you talk the talk and you walk the walk, that's the most motivating, inspiring thing ever. And it's going to be far more powerful coming from someone who's actually inside the family unit, who's living it, than from someone outside saying, oh, you should do this. Now, the thing is, for me, like, I want to provide the tools. And, like we've, for us to make this, to get the kids to actually do this on a regular basis, and the adults, we want to make it fun. And so, we've gamified it. We have different themes every day for the broadcast. There's a bus driver theme and a policeman theme. And we actually had some Olympic pole vaulters on with us the day that went of the pole vaulting competition in the Olympics. So we're always doing different themes, which is a lot of fun. But then for the adults, we've gamified it so you can have streaks and you can rank up and you can do all these different things. And again, it's all free. We're a free service for the world. So we're just trying to get everyone to move for 2.5 minutes together. But it's going to it all starts with us. If you want to see a change in your family and in your community, you need to actually make the change yourself. And when you do that, then you don't even necessarily have to talk about it. People will see it, they'll feel it. And then when you do get to talk about it, you can speak with it with so much more passion. And you can really bring it to them. And when you speak with passion and authenticity, that's what moves people.
Because that's something I'd say to people is, if you want to do X, go for it. And they'll say, but it's 3 years, it's a 3-year course, I can't do it. Or it's going to take me 6 months to train to do the marathon. I was like, 6 months is still going to pass regardless. Do you want to be where you are now? Or do you want to be, even if you do one thing and don't succeed, you're still not the same person. You're going to be a better version of yourself. And then that person can go on to the next thing and the next thing. And that's why I love this approach. It's a small change that you bring about, which gives people confidence and integrity to then go on to the next thing and the next thing. I could go on for hours and I could ask you so many more things, but I know you're so busy. But what would you want people to take from this? I would love to do a round 2, really get into stuff, but what would you give as an overall, what would you say is an overall message to people to take from this, or a challenge for them, for those listening?
Yeah. The challenge, and I'm going to go right back down to your own personal integrity. The moment that you become a promise keeper to yourself, that's the moment your life is going to change forever. But be smart about your promises. You're gambling with the most important thing in the world, and that is your personal integrity. That's your esteem. That's your confidence. That's your ability to love yourself. So you make those commitments small enough, almost so small that you can almost chuckle about how easy they are to keep. And you keep those every day until you're ready to build upon them. And I'm telling you, you shift your focus, your perspective to keeping that promise every single day. Look out. You'll be a juggernaut in the world. So baby steps, less is more. And sure enough, over time, and be patient with yourself, give yourself time. And ordinary people like you and me, we can all accomplish extraordinary things with that consistency, with personal integrity, and with time. That's it.
I love that. And for people who want to connect, download the apps, buy your products, all those sort of things, your social media, how can we find you? How can we interact with you?
So my social media is super easy. It's both on Instagram and Facebook. It's Real Chris Powell. Same thing on LinkedIn. So Real Chris Powell, you can find me there. And then for the app, it's at the Transform app. And for Move 1 Million, if you want to download that app, also you can just go to m1m.org, and there's the links to Apple and Google. Remember, it's free. It's 100% free. Join us every day. Move with us. Help us move 1 million people every day, and rally your friends and your family and your loved ones. And the feeling is incredible, and it will unite you, and you're going to feel better, and we'll move together. We'll be mindful together, and we do it every single day. So just join us. It's fun.
Well, that's it for another week, and thank you for listening. It's now time to take what you've learned and use it to develop and enhance your life with the key points mentioned. Listen, try it, embrace it, use it, and crush it. Now's your time to hit that next level in your life. If you liked this episode, then please leave a comment on the show notes or a review of the show on your podcast platform. Everything helps evolve the show. Until next week, keep seeking the next level in your life.